Hey guys, it's Zach back with another review, this time the Eweadn Z7, a unique aesthetic, a very familiar shape, that of the Viper Mini, an upgrade for them with a new Nordic MCU, some pretty sweet Kailh optical clicks, and an attempt to answer that age-old question, can someone absolutely nail the wireless, lightweight Viper Mini? Did Eweadn do it here? Let's find out. So here we have it, the Eweadn Z7, yet another attempt by a company to perfect the wireless, sort of lightweight Viper Mini clone. Has not been done to perfection as of yet, in my opinion. Pwnage came very close, some units very good. Other companies like Deluxe have tried, but in my opinion have not quite pulled it off. Can Eweadn do it? Let's find out. Eweadn, a very interesting company. They typically have one thing about their mice that I don't love, but overall provide a very compelling product, albeit with slightly higher weights typically, and that is also the case here, being slightly over 50 grams on the smaller shape, but it doesn't feel that heavy or dense to me in hand. Definitely not lightweight like the Hyperlight, for example, but still usable. This is sort of like the IPI, Ippy, Chi, Tack Shark R11, upcoming ATK Ghost. Although this has a slightly, I would say, almost like fuzzier texture to it. You can definitely feel this sort of carbon fiber infused. It's not complete carbon fiber, but I'm assuming there is some aspect of it in the shell. That texture very much can be felt in hand, but yeah, pretty much we're going for a wireless Viper Mini. We got some new switches in the clicks. Battery's a bit large for my liking. Let's jump directly into it. This has 3950 AK pulling Nordic 54L MCU, and also do note the battery allows for fast charging, so probably not an easy battery swap, at least not a safe one, as the voltages will probably be different. But anyway, this has the Kailh optical clicks. The first time Eweadn has done these. I would say the clicks aren't super light, but it doesn't require a ton of force to actuate, like the heavier side of light, the lighter side of medium, for me at least. They rebound very consistently. I do really like these switches. If you can't give me Armor and opticals, I would say give me these. Their implementation is pretty good, has a slight bit of pinkiness to it, maybe like a little bit on the plasticky side, but like generally overall satisfying clicks. Some side to side play here, nothing that bothered me in game, but is present. Pre and post travel pretty decent, didn't again bother me, rebounded nicely. If you click super far down on the mouse, you can get a little extra pre-travel there, but not a big deal. Also has this sort of grill here on the front. Honestly, doesn't even get that much heavier back all the way up here on the clicks, which is a good thing to see. So overall, the clicks were satisfactory. Not quite the best Kailh optical implementation I've seen, but pretty good. Scroll wheel, this textured rubber, these side pieces here, these sort of accents are plastic. Scroll steps, defined but light. Click, actually very spammable, which is the thing I most check for these days on a scroll wheel. Side buttons are an absolute win. A little bit more central than forward, but it's a smaller mouse. They're glossy. I like that texture, sort of stickiness almost to them, and it has that ridge, so they protrude very nicely. The side buttons, an absolute win again. A bit of pre-travel there, not a lot of post-travel. Not quite the most tactile, so I guess that could be one thing you might not love about them. Not quite the most spammable, but you can spam them decently there. They're a little bit below optimal on rebound and a little bit below optimal on tactility, but not anything that bothered me at all in game. The front one a bit pingier, and just no side-to-side play here at all. Coming to the bottom of the mouse here, we have these larger black PTFE skates. Almost always when I see black PTFE, I cringe a bit, and these again are not bad skates by any means. They're not the thickest, but they're not the thinnest. They do pick up some debris there around the edges. They do mark up, which honestly is one of my least favorite aspects of the black PTFE. They just mark up very easily. This is only cloth pad usage, but they're not the fastest. They're not mud skates by any means here. They glide decently on this 4114 Aero V2, but if you compare them to something like the CR Draco skates, they are much faster. These white PTFE, and this is just a little bit muddier, but again, not super slow. Not my favorite skates, but something that was plenty usable in game, just like on their S9 Ultra Plus, I believe it was called. And then you get that sort of silhouette of the Viper Mini, no Bluetooth, and a separate DPI button, and the sensor a bit forward of center, so shouldn't get any complaints there. I already talked a bit about the surface texture. Again, it feels how it looks. It's a bit fuzzier than the Ghost. For what it's worth, when I review this, ATK seems to have applied some sort of smoothing to this, so it's not nearly as able to be felt in hand, which I really like. Whereas this, again, just has a slightly fuzzier feeling. It's not quite as much as it was on like the R11 from Tack Shark. It doesn't really bother me. It's not super slippery for me. It's not super grippy, so it is an improvement from the previous mice that I'm assuming are coming out of the same sort of factory that have this, but I wouldn't really call it a coating. I would just more call it a surface texture, so take that as you will. And then build integrity here on the sides, there is zero flex at all. On the bottom, even just a little tiny bit. Nothing really to be concerned about. Even pushing very hard here on the back shell. This thing is actually built like a tank, so with that extra weight that you do get solid build integrity. So overall, the implementation of this mouse is probably one of the better, if not the best, I've seen from Eweadn. Wholly reflective silver that is still blinding me even in my own recording I'm looking at. But yeah, clicks are pretty darn solid. Scroll wheel, no complaints. Love the side buttons. Skates, I wish they were just standard or translucent PTFE. Honestly, if you put those skates on, drop this 5 grams, and gave it a standard rubberized coating, this could be an endgame small mouse. Still think it could be for some people, but you're going to have to like the texture. And honestly, the skates, not that big of a deal. Got a couple different mice to compare it here to, the Pwnage Trinity CF and the HitScan Rodian Slim ATK F1 V2. A little bit of a change up here. I have not done shape comps from above, so let's do it. These two mice here are more shooting to be Viper Mini-esque, but key differences here, the back flare is a little bit wider here on the Z7, but the taper is a bit more severe here on the CF. We're talking like 1 to 2 millimeters, but you do feel that in hand. The overall ratio of back to center is similar, but you can see the slightly narrower center here on the CF. Comfort grooves here are pretty similar. The Trinity has slightly higher click height. The button placement, in my opinion, is much more friendly to me on the Z7 as they're a little bit lower down here. But if you're someone with large hands or larger thumbs, I could see these being more out of the way if that is an issue you have, and they're placed pretty similarly as far as where they are in relation to the front and back of the mouse. Thumb profiles on these are pretty similar. I guess the Z7 stays a little bit taller in the front, and top down you can see a slight difference in how the clicks come to the front of the mouse there. You might feel this little ridge here. Obviously you'll have your opinions on the holes in the back of this mouse. These mice are, again, both emulating the same shape of the Viper Mini. There are subtle differences. To my hand, I do like the narrower midpoint of the Trinity, but I also like the slightly larger back flare for my 19x10 hands on the Z7. Both feel very similar to me, both very comfortable, small claw focused mice. I've been told the Z7 is the most true to the shape of the Viper Mini. I don't have a Viper Mini to do comparisons, so that's all I can really give you. And then the ATK F1 here is going to be a couple millimeters wider here. Like you can see the taper is not quite as severe, but the back also doesn't flare out as much as the Z7, and a little bit flatter into the front of the mouse as well. Hump profiles are similar, but as you can see, the Z7 is a taller mouse in the hump and a taller mouse in the front as well. This is similar-ish to a Viper Mini, but it's never been a Viper Mini clone. And the HitScan Hyperlight is going to have even less flare here. It's an even flatter mouse, controversy aside. Again, these are adjacent. These are definitely competitors in size and shape, but again, a little bit lower here on the hump and the click height as well. And you can definitely feel that in hand. But I will say, even though this is a little bit shorter of a mouse, the way this tapers down does make this part of the top of the mouse contact my palm more and actually give me more support, which is sort of the opposite of what you would think and why I wanted to mention it. Now, performance-wise, the Z7 was pretty good. They have this newer, larger dual 8K dongle here. Not sure why I called the dongle dual 8K. The mouse is dual 8K. The dongle, obviously 8K wireless. Same as their newer S9 and more recent mice. I found the performance on that, the resistance to wireless interference, to be not perfect, but pretty darn good. Definitely no complaints in use. Graphs pretty solid, and an improvement from their older, smaller dongles. So again, as with most mice these days, not much to write home about with the performance. A solid Nordic 54L implementation, which is going to give you a fast charge and longer battery life on this 500 milliamp hour battery. I do wish this had maybe a 250 milliamp hour or 300 milliamp hour battery. I will say the battery life you can achieve on the 54H with this is a 250 milliamp hour battery, I believe, is still pretty strong. So honestly, if you've got the 54L here, which lasts much, much longer, a lot lower power draw, 500 milliamp hours is going to last a long damn time. I didn't test it at all. I would not worry about battery life on this mouse. Do note that typically with fast charging mice, it's not as much of a straightforward battery swap. The batteries that you would usually swap out are not going to be directly compatible. They would probably still work, but they also may pose a risk with a mismatch there. I'm not a mouse modder. Don't fully quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that is how it is. Also, before I forget, if you order right now, you do get this carbon fiber case with the Z7, as well as your choice of an aviator style cable. They have a bunch of different colors you can choose from. The mouse currently retailing at $90, which brings me to talking about the value and my overall impressions of the Eweadn Z7. Do I think this is the best Viper Mini clone, Viper Mini adjacent mouse? Not quite, for a couple of reasons. Yes, I'm going to weigh mice on a mouse pad. No, it doesn't make that much difference, and if you're weighing 2 mice, relatively it'll be the same. 53.9 is what I get on this, which is within 0.1 grams of what I saw before. You got the very similar shape of the Trinity CF, carbon fiber obviously coming in at 41 grams, 13 grams lighter. You've got the ATK F1 V2 Ultimate coming in at 40 grams, so that is 14 grams lighter. So again, by no means a light mouse for this size. That'd probably be my biggest criticism. I do wish this were lighter. Similar to, say, for example, the WLMouse Huan. Again, wish this were lighter as well. It's around 50 grams solid magnesium shell. And as you can see, the Huan is Viper Mini-ish, but it just differentiates itself in where it tapers, how it comes back out to the front, how tall it is in the front, and then how this hump is a little bit more protruding and far forward than the other Viper Mini-ish mice. I've not really reviewed reviewed this. Let me know in the comments. Do you want me to review this Huan, or should I just sell the damn thing and get my money back tomorrow? That's not to say I don't like it. It's just not a mouse I'm going to use going forward. Has some pretty nice arm-on clicks though. But yeah, overall, the value on this at 90 bucks is interesting, right? So like most of the mice you get from ATK with the Kale opticals are going to run you $100+ or around $90. So this is competing with those right around the Ghost, for example. And the Ghost implementation, pretty darn similar to this. It feels a little bit more buttoned up, slightly better skates, slightly better on the clicks, around the same weight, and no, not remotely the same shape. I guess you could say remotely, but like the Viper, this is like a Viper V3 Mini almost, not as much taper, does flare out on the front, and just a generally more drawn out hump profile. Full review of that coming soon. For 90 bucks, if you love this colorway, if you love this shape, you want a Nordic 54 MCU. I mean, it's got Kale opticals, which are pretty good. Overall, it's pretty well done. Nice glossy side buttons. I can't not recommend it. It's pretty solid. It's a bit more than I would probably like to pay for it, but that's honestly the case with a majority of mice that come across my desk these days. So honestly, it's definitely a decent value, well implemented mouse, long battery life, and definitely a, I guess not quite as unique aesthetic these days, as this is becoming a more popular print. For what it's worth, if you're asking my opinion, I'm not a fan of this surface texture. Give me a nice rubberized coating, but I'm sure some are. Jumping into some measurements here, the narrowest point of the taper comes to 54.4 millimeters. Again, that was a bit wider than the Trinity CF, a bit narrower than the F1 V2. The back flare on this, 61.3 millimeters. Front grip width, roughly 58.9 millimeters. And I clocked the hump height around 37.8 millimeters. We do have a web driver here from Eweadn. We've seen this before. You can set that to bounce on these opticals to 20 millimeters. There is not split XY DPI settings. I ran this on 2K, highest performance, no other settings turned on, one LOD, no issues in that area. Mouse went to sleep fine, had great battery life. You can also change macros and the lights on the dongle. I did also test 20K FPS and long distance. Again, we've seen this solution many times before, but this is a new inclusion here, the 20K FPS, which again, I don't find to be useful. Again, we'll turn that off going forward. Drains the battery a bit more, doesn't really change performance in my estimation. And then interestingly enough, mouse angle mode is here as well. This is a new addition for Eweadn. Again, not something I've seen in this version of the software before, and definitely a positive. So that about sums it up for my thoughts on the Eweadn Z7. Definitely a solid implementation of a mouse, a bit high in the price department, but also a nicely buttoned up package. My criticisms, again, a little bit heavy on the weight. Don't love the surface feel, but the rest of the mouse was very well implemented. The performance was great, and again, a recreation of a very popular, very comfortable small claw shape. Please subscribe and like if you enjoyed the video. You can find me on X at @Zach. Check out the Mousecast podcast, as well as my peripheral Discord server. And with that, we'll flee.